you've got to be careful of fractions and negative numbers. Fractions and negative numbers. That's the tricky thing. So 5x cubed for x equals negative 1/5 would be as follows. 5. Now I put a pocket. 1 over 5. And all of that, okay, all of this is going to be cubed. All right? So, first of all, I've got to solve the inner part here. This is just like PEMDAS. You do what's in the parentheses first. Negative 1. Again, that's negative 1 cubed. And what's negative 1 cubed?
Negative 1.
Good stuff. Next one, number 2. 2y squared minus 2 for x equals negative 3. Basically, all you do is you've got to use your pockets. So you go 2 onto pocket squared minus 2. And you insert that negative 3 in there, you're going to substitute. The question that people have, a lot of people have a problem with this because even if they get the substitution right, they don't always get the order of operations right. What does order of operations say? PEMDAS. Negative 3 squared, there's nothing in the parentheses. So this will be exponents, so it's going to be 2 times 9 minus 2, which is equal to 18 minus 2, which is equal to 16. Relatively simple and straightforward. And there's a question here coming in, Jonathan. It better be good. What is it?
Which are the ones that the exponents are like always negative?
What do you mean always a negative?
Like,
oh yeah.
If it's negative 2 to the 4th,
Yeah.
like most people.
Oh yeah. I'll go over this.
That
in a
be
minute.
negative?
Negative 2 to the 4th will always be positive because here, this is a good question. An even exponent, okay? Negative 2 to the 4th power. Yeah, I know. Look at this. I'm going to give you 2 examples. Negative 2 to the 4th is going to equal 16.
Question.
It's going to be negative 2 times negative 2, which is 4, times negative 2, which is 8, negative 8, times negative 2, which is positive 16. Because when you multiply a negative by itself 4 times, an even number of times, it ends up being positive. However, negative 2 to the 4th is a different story. Because there's no parentheses there, order of operations says you do the exponent first, which means you leave the negative outside and you just do 2 to the 4th, which is equal to 16, and you get that. So write that one down as an aside because that's real important. Negative a for a equals negative 4. This one, negative a. Now, this is a little tricky because you've got a negative and you have to create another pocket inside there for the negative 4. See that? So you've got a bunch of negatives. Where do you work from? The outside or the inside?
Inside.
Inside. So it's negative times a negative. So we've got negative on the outside and that becomes positive 4. And our answer is clearly
Negative 4.
negative 4. So 2 over 2 plus x for x equals 1/2. Now the tricky thing about this is that you've got a fraction in a fraction. Practice it because it's tricky. And even though it looks easy, it's not. 2 plus 1/2. First of all, you've got to deal with the 2 plus 1/2. And how do you deal with that? Well, 2 and 1/2. But common denominator would be 4 over 2 plus 1 over 2 is going to be 5 over 2. So the whole thing is going to be 2 over 5 over 2. All right? All right, so 2 over 5 over 2, well, what that is 2 divided by 5 over 2. Well, what is that but 2 times the reciprocal, which is 2/5. And now we're pretty close to our answer. 2 times 2 is 4 on the top, 5 on the bottom, and we have our answer. Good stuff. All right, everybody see that okay? When you are dividing fractions, you multiply by the reciprocal. And that means you multiply by the second one changes, it flips over, but the first one stays the same. Okay? So that's what it means to multiply by the reciprocal. Number 5, let's get back online there. Record this one, Pepper. All right, evaluate, this is number 5. Evaluate negative x cubed plus 5xy plus y cubed for x equals negative 2 and y equals 3. Again, it's all about pockets, guys. We've been doing that since the beginning. And how important are they? So important, it's not funny. It's absolutely essential you do your pockets because look, if I create pockets here, I'm basically creating a nice little space for everything to be put into. Now I just take a nice easy breath there. I've done most of the work right now is putting those pockets into place because now I go ahead and I replace that x and I'm going to put in negative 2, right?
Black.
And then this one is an x as well, so that's negative 2. 3, and then there's a 3 again here, because that's where the y goes. And now now we start figuring it out. You put things in the right place. Negative 2 cubed is equal to what? It's going to be negative 8. Okay, be careful with your negatives. Now, if a negative number multiplied by itself an odd number of times will give you a negative. Plus, now this is going to be 5 still, but negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. Negative times negative 8 is equal to positive 8. and positive 8 plus negative 30, because 5 times negative 6 is negative 30. All right, good stuff. That was there to test you to see if you're awake. 8 plus negative 30 is negative 22 plus 27 is 5, and we're done. Number 7. This one here, okay, this is a little bit of a funny parentheses. 11 times x minus 2 minus 7 minus, very key here, 2 plus 3 onto x minus 3. What is it, Ron?
When is our final? This
Our
week or
final
next
is
week?
Thursday, Friday for part 1. That's these kind of questions. And part 2, which we're going to review tomorrow, is next, I believe, next Thursday.
And how many questions?
So let's, there's 32 on part 1 and about a little less on part 2 because they're longer. So 11 times x minus 2 minus 7. What do we do first, guys? Distribute. 11 times x, quiet please, and 11 times negative 2. So we get 11x minus 22 minus 7, okay, minus, a big minus here, and we've got 2 plus 3x minus 9. That's actually pretty straightforward. All you're doing is clearing the parentheses by distributing, right? So that's pretty straightforward. Now it's collecting like terms, except for we have this big minus sign that has to be distributed onto all of these. So we can't really do much here except we can get negative 22 and negative 7 or negative 29. We'll go ahead and do that. Then we'll distribute this, and it's going to change the sign of each of these, negative 2, negative 3x, okay, and plus 9, all right? 11x, now we can distribute, but I'm not going to collect like terms until I put them all in the same area, okay? That's the difference between an organized mind and a disorganized mind. Disorganized mind is always jumpy and nervous and trying to do too much at once. Not so for the organized mind. No problem. I'm going to take my extra 10 seconds and I'm going to nail this problem, and I know I'm going to go away knowing I got this one right. There's a difference. And people get nervous in math because they try to jump around and do too much and they never really feel confident. Please don't let that be you. Please get one question at a time right and write them out. Look, 4 or 5 different lines here to get this. I'm going to go through. Look at, I'm not even going to add these 3 numbers together because they're integers. Integers are tricky. I don't care who you are, what age you are. If you're a college professor in math, integers are tricky. So please be easy on yourself. Write out the lines. Don't try to do too much at once. Take one step at a time. Negative 29 and negative 2 is negative 31. We're almost there. 8x. Now we've got our final calculation. Negative 31 plus 9, which again is tricky, is equal to negative 22, I believe.
Today.
Yes.
Why does that negative 2 that's below the brackets turn or negative 3x turn into negative?
Right here, that positive 3x?
Yeah.
That turned negative because this negative got distributed on it. If you want, I can write this in as a negative, an invisible 1. See?
Oh, okay.
And that got distributed onto there. Good question, Jonathan. Onto there and onto there. Okay? That was a very key thing right there is the key. That would be the trickiest part of this problem. I see a lot of people will do this negative 1 times the 2, and they'll forget to do it onto the 3. Or the negative 9. No, that has to be distributed. Like a negative 1 additive inverse gets distributed onto the rest of the problem. Any other questions? Good question so far. Negative 4x minus. Now again, we've got this whole thing with the additive inverse. If you want, we can put a negative 1 in there. We can make that negative 1 because that invisible 1 means, you see, we just distribute that onto those 2 things. So negative 4x minus, or sorry, positive x, because a negative times a negative is a positive. Plus y, good stuff. There we go. And now, pretty easy there, negative 3x is good. Now I see a lot of people messing that up. Negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3. Okay, be confident in the little stuff. And that's as far as you can go. You can't add x's and y's. Dolphins and lions don't run or swim together.